Hi, and thank you for joining Insight into Wellness. I am Alexandra Greenberg, the owner of Green Tree Ayurveda. Today, I'm going to be talking to CéShaun Hankins, and I will be introducing her right now. She is a psychotherapist, life and career coach, and consultant with a passion for working with wellness providers, heart-centered entrepreneurs, and creative people. She helps her clients establish their holistic wellness or self-care, to experience balance, help to prevent burnout, and to build a reservoir of resilience. Her work also includes guidance around clarity of purpose, getting in touch with the authentic self, mindset shifts, and daily practical mindset and mindfulness practices. CéShaun and I are going to be discussing the hot topic, combating parental burnout. As a mother of a young child, CéShaun knows the reality of being a parent, owning a business, and the importance of staying tuned into her self-care. We'll cover the benefits of being mindful, the importance of shifting our thoughts, and also she'll be giving some coping skills to address burnout. So CéShaun, thank you for joining me.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to be here, Alexandra. Thanks for inviting me and having me.
Oh, of course. And just to start off, I love the reservoir of resilience because it means so much. It means when you burn out, you have everything to help back you up. So I just love that.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, yes, I don't even think I've heard that term, like reservoir of resilience. I just kind of came up with it.
Yeah.
Like I think a lot in images. I'm very visual. So even when I'm working with my clients, I'm like, it's kind of like a road and there's a rock in the road. So this reservoir of resilience really is this image of, our, lake bed or our river or our reservoir of just energy and wellness that has to be full, right? We have to constantly replenish it in an active and intentional way so that we can continue to give. And then I know that a lot of the people that you work with in your audience are parents. So as a parent, that is very important, but also very challenging, very challenging.
Yeah. Well, I love doing these interviews and I say it every time because I really want to highlight you as a practitioner, as a coach, as a consultant, and just dive into the river of your life. And, was there a moment in your life that really set you on this path?
So my story is kind of, and I think a lot of people, as I talk to people, are like, that was kind of like me too. It wasn't like I was born or was a child and was like, I want to help people in this specific way, or I want to be a therapist, or I want to be a coach. Like, I don't even think coach was a word unless you were like a PE coach or something at that time.
Yeah.
I actually wanted to be a marine biologist. So totally related, obviously. But that's really something I wanted to do. I'm from San Diego, so I was really just like focused on that and the sciences. But then I got to college and the reality of some of the coursework that you had to do. I was, competing with people who were pre-med students. And it really wasn't doing that well. But during that time, I was exposed to the world of options and started to become really involved in counseling on campus, counseling other students, coaching other students, being a mentor, getting really involved in campus activities and social activism and things like that. So I, had to like sit back and really reflect, like, do I want to continue on this path of like science in this way? Is there anything else that I'm passionate about? And I realized that a lot of the things that I was becoming involved in outside of my courses was the people connecting piece. So for me, social work was really natural because it's all about self-determination and supporting the person. And it really was just in line with my values. So I went that way. And it was also, I actually went in wanting to do like policy and that kind of thing. But as I went through my social work program, I fell in love with the one-on-one individual work with people.
Mm.
So that kind of was this like, one step at a time. I'm like, okay, what do I feel about this? What do I feel about this? And I like to live that way. So I kind of, I fell into psychotherapy that way and coaching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing how little things that we can pick up can direct our lives. And
Yeah.
I love that I feel, and you can tell me if this is what you feel also, that you kind of made your own business. You've made your own life. You've conducted your life in a way that you're giving back, you're diving in, and you're really truly doing what you want to do.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's 100% right. And, when I'm working with my coaching clients or my therapy clients, it's also about getting in touch with who we are authentically, even if we're in the midst of our roles transitioning. Being parents is one of those.
Mm-hmm.
How do we stay connected to who we are? How do we tap into that inner voice, our inner guide, our intuition, so that we can continue to be true to ourselves? And that's, how I try to live.
Yeah. How has being a parent impacted, directed, redirected your vision and also coming up against burnout for yourself?
Yeah, so there are a few questions. So the first question, how has being a parent really shaped this path that I'm on? So maybe we'll step back a little bit further to kind of go like linearly time-wise. So I was learning how to be a therapist, and I was working in community mental health. Didn't have a child at the time, single. And during that time, I met my partner, and I was working in an environment that was really taxing. A lot of expectations. It was county contracted, so there was just so many just expectations, really. And the people that I was working with were also high need, and I loved working with my clients, but it was that coupled with the environment that I was in that started to become less and less supportive. That slowly I became burnt out. And the thing about burnout is that it's insidious. It's really slow moving. Unless you probably have already experienced burnout, or you're really just in tune with yourself, you're not going to know it's happening until you're already at the other side, of the pendulum, and you have to like completely step out. So that's where I was. I knew I was burnt out because and I don't even know if I had the word at the time, but I knew something was off. I was driving to work and I was crying. I was like just becoming kind of cynical about the work that I was doing with people. And that's like absolutely not what you want with somebody who is in a helping profession, right? So just kind of like, internally like, oh, this again, or oh, why do they, need this again? I was like, this is wrong. This is just not natural. This is like my high stress state. So I left the field completely and did something like in the for-profit world. Actually worked in a cosmetology school, and became the director of the school and worked in professional development. So that really started to hone my skills in kind of career coaching in that way. But then through that, I had my little one, and that job became very high stress as well. I still hadn't learned the lessons that I needed to learn on how to really take care of myself, but also my role was transitioning. So what I needed was different, right? So during that maternity leave and, starting back to work, and she was really young and that was really hard. I had to reflect and say, okay, what do I need in this moment? I still feel passionate about mental health and working with people. But having her became this, I don't know, like a light
I was going to
on
say like a
my life.
door.
Yeah, like just it made me stop and have to reflect on what was important to me, because there was this other person that I was essentially had another reason to kind of keep going and reassess. And how do I want to be an example to her? How do I be a happy person for myself, but also for my family? So it became kind of this like pivotal point at the road where I had to stop and reflect. And I decided to return to mental health, but in a different way. I entered private practice and through that, I started working with new mothers, which I loved.
Mm.
I worked with wellness practitioners, which I really, really loved. A lot of them very burnt out. All of them, that's like the connecting piece. Some of them were wellness professionals and new parents. So that just
Mm.
was like, even more. And I just was really passionate about that. And then, I was in California, left California, came to Portland, and started my coaching. So I added coaching into it while I was kind of getting established here with therapy, and have really focused on the wellness provider, helpers and healers, and social workers. So that was probably really long-winded. I don't
I
know if
love
that
them.
answered the question.
Yeah.
But yeah, but also having her, so yes, it was like this pivotal piece, but also I was being taxed in two different areas now, right? So there's the
Mhm.
professional burnout, and like, how do I manage that? And now I have this other role. It doesn't stop when I go home. I can't just go home and lay on the couch and veg out, or
Yeah.
do whatever I have to do. I have to continue to go, where is that, like, how do I fill this reservoir? How do I stay in tune with myself, so that I don't just like burn out in all areas and then I can't help anyone.
This is
Yeah.
perfect because it really does lead in to the next question of what do you do personally? Because, I, as a coach and as a guide and someone who is offering so much information, I also don't use all that information. And
Yeah.
sometimes I have to pick and choose what I'm using. And I think it's important to, as a guide and a coach, to do and practice what we preach and offer. So how do you stay in alignment with what you offer and how you help?
Yeah. So that's a very great question. Um, it's being realistic
Mm.
and flexible, and knowing that whatever wellness plan, I call it like a holistic coping plan, which is, we can also call it self-care. Um, it's flexible. It's dynamic. I'm not going to create this one way to do things, and this is just always the way it's going to be. And it doesn't have to look a certain way, because I notice if I do that, or people in my life are doing it that way, or clients are like, it has to be this way, that turns into this like self-judgment thing. You're criticizing yourself because you're not doing it, doesn't look a certain way, or doesn't look like what your neighbor is doing. Um, yeah, so it's like you don't want to build this like self-care wellness thing and then like incorporate judgment, and then self-abandonment, because you're like, well, forget it, I'm not going to do it at all,
Yeah.
because I just can't do it right.
Do
That's
you
what I kind of like.
feel, oh, I'm sorry to
No,
interrupt.
no,
Do
I
you
can keep
feel that,
talking, so interrupt me.
do you feel that judgment to yourself? Do you stop yourself? Like what is something that you are actively doing?
So what I actively do, so again, it's that being flexible, right? So it's asking myself, what do I need?
Mm.
Right? Literally ask myself, what do I need in this moment? And I already have like my coping toolbox, and I keep adding things to it. What do I need in this moment? And if it's a phase in my life where I have more time, what I like to do is I have like a morning check-in.
Mm.
And sometimes the morning check-in is more robust. I'm able to do some stretches or a yoga flow, do some journaling, some morning journaling, some morning pages. If you're familiar with like Julia Cameron and her, whole philosophy, doing that, and like getting up a little bit earlier than everyone else. And my daughter, now that her sleeping has stabilized a bit, I can actually do that. Right. And then that's the thing too. It's like when your kids are small, it's you have to shift. Like I couldn't do the things that maybe I can do even now when she's almost 3. So that, and then throughout my day, I check in with myself. And now for me, it's more automatic. But when I was starting out, it was like, okay, there's a morning check-in, there's like a midday check-in, and maybe I would tie it to meal. So every time I sit down to eat, I'm going
Mm.
to check in with myself. What am I feeling physically in my body? Because we can get really detached. What's my emotional state right now? Like, yeah, like what's my emotion? I'm feeling really frustrated, angry, sad, content. And then what are my thoughts saying? Like, what am I actually speaking to myself, right? And in that, it's really awareness in that first phase. And then, then you can start making changes if you feel like, okay, ooh, I want to loosen up now, right? And then at the end of the day, having an evening routine. So I might do another yoga flow, and some more journaling, a meditation, right? And that's like when I'm able to do it full force. But at the very least, if like the day's just going like this, I am doing those check-ins, just a quick check-in. Okay, so it's like thoughts, feelings, and body, right? So thoughts, feelings, and body.
Love that too.
So what's going on with me right now? And if I have an opportunity to like loosen, drop in, check in, then I will do that. So that's what I do.
Yeah, I love this energy of the mind, body, and I call it heart, and really making sure we have those three pieces to move forward. So not one thing is, excuse me, falling behind. When we can move forward with the thoughts, the feelings, and the body, or the mind, body, and heart, I think that fullness and that wholeness really allows us to step forward into a new space. I read in one of your posts that exploration and awareness is really a first true step to combating or working with burnout.
Right.
And you use this with your clients. How do you use that first step?
So when I say awareness, it's like code for mindfulness, essentially. And I don't always say mindfulness because sometimes that turns people off, or it just sounds like this really like esoteric, like, I don't know what that is. I can't do that. That's meditation. And it isn't, right? Mindfulness is present moment awareness without judgment, right? So it's dropping into the moment, what's going on right now, trying to slow it down, right? Instead of like thought reaction, let's slow it down. Let's give it a little bit of space, and then doing it without judgment. So that's essentially what mindfulness is. So when I'm working with a client, who's chronically stressed, and burnout is a form of chronic stress, just depleted, physically exhausted, cynical, kind of jaded, not feeling like what they're doing is effective or helping anyone, it's not worth it, which are like all part of burnout, we stop and we drop in and we become mindful. And why that awareness is so important is because without awareness, then there is no change, right? There is no opportunity to change, or it's really ineffective because we're just changing what we think, like, oh, maybe because so-and-so said, or that's what, they're doing, maybe this is what I should do, but we're not in touch. Yeah. So it's like, it's beginning to explore yourself and get a little bit more intimate with yourself. That's the only way that you can then begin to incorporate some other pieces. And I like self-compassion as one of those pieces to start to care for yourself. Mm-hmm.
Then sometimes that first step, can be challenging to turn inward and to look and to slow down.
We don't want to look because it's like, it's safe, right? It's a coping mechanism to become detached even from yourself, because like if I turn in, then I got to get in touch with all those things that don't feel good.
Change can be hard.
Yeah.
Change can be challenging, but the step beyond that is beautiful.
Yeah, I agree.
You speak a lot to the working woman, the working man, and you talk about creating these boundaries in the workplace. And I think creating a boundary also at home with your friends, with your family, with your children, your partner is so important. And I was hoping that you could speak to that piece, please.
Sure. How to create boundaries, or like what I do, or...
That's a great question. Thanks for that. Even the idea of creating boundaries and why it's so important to create boundaries, and then, offering some tools, of course, is
right. Yeah. So boundaries, when we hear this again, it's like, well, what is that, right? And sometimes it turns us off, especially if we're a parent or a caregiver, because it sounds like we're creating a wall and we're just shutting people out, right? Mm-hmm. And that's not really what it's about. Boundaries are a way to continue to like keep your reservoir full. Let's keep with that analogy.
Yeah.
Right. So that you can continue to care. Right. if we have no boundaries, they're very like diffuse, and even there's just no privacy. You have no moments to yourself. You're not able to check in with yourself. Then you're just really checked out. It's not healthy for any relationships that you're with. It's not healthy for your child, for thinking about even just modeling, right? So I don't really know if I'm answering that question, but it's tough, right? It's tough to set boundaries. And how do we do that in a way that doesn't feel icky or like we're shutting people out? We also have to know, if we have never set boundaries with people, there's going to be like a reaction, and most likely not a good reaction, because we're changing the system. We're changing, if we're talking about at home, with our family, with our children, and the children will really just be like, they're not going to be passive aggressive about it. They're going to be like, I don't like this, right? Or they're going to cry or whatever. So knowing that that's going to be part of it initially, but going beyond that and having the explanation, even with a child. So what I'll do with my 2-year-old, if I'm like reaching this limit, and for me, a sign is irritability. So the beautiful thing about mindfulness is, because now I know more of my signs of when I'm reaching my level, my limit. It's irritability, right? And I'm like, I don't want to be this irritable person. I don't want to give her that energy. So it's like, you know what? I'm going to let you have your feelings right now. I can say these things to her now, but even then, even as like a 1-year-old, I might say this to her, because they're picking it up, right? So I'm going to let you have your feelings right now. Say she's tantruming and she's just, mommy needs to go have a sip of water, and I'm going to sit down. And when you're ready, you can let me know, right? Or, if you have a partner, like, it's harder when you don't, but if you have a partner, like, hey, I need to tap out because I'm reaching my limit. I really need your help, right? I'm feeling this and I need this.
Yes, that is huge. Asking for help, and also when help is given, accepting that help.
Yeah, I think in our society, it's seen as a weakness to say no, to set a limit, to say I'm tired, for goodness sake.
Scream it,
Like,
yell it. Tell
right. Like, yeah, and I think it becomes this, a radical act to be mindful, to be self-compassionate, to say no, to say I'm tired, to say I need a nap, to take rest in this society is a radical revolutionary thing.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
And it really should not be that way. But for me, I almost think it's empowering. It's a social worker in me. It's like, I need a rest, but it's also communicating this. If we're thinking about our children, being even able to set a limit with them. And it's like, no, mama, dada, grandpa, whoever, like, I'm not leaving you. I need a minute. We all need to take our time to like have our feelings, so that we can come back and just be present, and we can play, right? Mommy needs like 5 minutes. We will come back and play when I'm ready. And they get it. Get it. They'll understand. Yeah.
And you're also passing that on. You're passing
Absolutely.
the torch. You're teaching your children at a young age self-care. I was just having this conversation yesterday with a friend. How do we, as women, as adults, and men too, I don't want to leave them out of the conversation, some of us are just starting to work on self-care, just starting to step into that reservoir and understand that we need to build that. And so then teaching our children at a young age, or instilling by doing, is so important.
Right. I think there's a lot of talk now about like just healing generational trauma, or generational just maladaptive, I would say, or just like kind of toxic, unhealthy behavior. We are able to make that change and to break those patterns. Like, you have that power to start breaking those patterns in your family cycle that have been passed down to, or you've learned, so that, like you said, we don't continue to pass that on to the next generation.
Yeah. We've kind of touched on mind shifting and positive movement towards taking that first step. Can you share a few tools? And again, you did talk about them, but for the last few minutes, just share a few tools of really, exploring what those first steps feel like towards mindset shifting.
Okay.
I could also say it
Connect
again,
those two.
like,
Yeah. I'm just thinking mind shifting, like mindset.
yeah,
So the way I see mindset really is just, it's your thoughts. So it's like kind of, I think, when we say mindset, that kind of thing, like it gets like, well, what's a mindset? Like everybody's talking about it. Like it's just how you perceive the world. It's the glasses and the lenses with which you perceive things. And they could have been given to you by your family, or, you've learned them throughout time. So how do we begin to switch out those lenses to lenses
exactly.
of, mindfulness and acceptance? So first it's going to be like, I work with my clients, this exploration and this awareness, and it's going to look maybe different for everyone. But what I do with my clients is literally in the session, we start to check in, and I will model, okay, let's check in with our bodies, right? The body does not lie, right? The body knows what's going on. Physically scanning and doing a body scan, you can find great body scan meditations, checking in with the body, right? And even literally like writing down what you're thinking in a moment where you're feeling tense, sitting down and maybe writing it, maybe pulling at your phone, writing like what you're feeling, and then checking in, what am I experiencing in my body? So the point is to like really just increase that awareness, and then bringing in tools to really start shifting. So we know, like in psychology, there's just types of therapies that we do that once we change our thoughts are connected to our feelings, right? So once we can start to just perceive things differently, instead of, this thing is terrible, it's the end of the world, how can I slow down and check in with myself and even bring in some self-compassion to this situation? So we didn't really talk about it, and I want to like be mindful of time as well. And tell me if I'm not really answering your question.
No, no, you're doing great. This is,
um, but I always bring in, like, as a next step after mindfulness, and you really have to kind of practice it. It's all a practice. Do mindfulness for a while, like just checking in with yourself and what are you feeling, because that will bring in some self-discovery. And you also have to work through some of those feelings that feel kind of icky and you don't really like. And then the next step would bring in self-compassion, which is a soothing element. And literally one thing that I think is just beautiful and simple is touch. We know, just as part of our brains, I'm not going to go into the science, but like touch releases oxytocin and kind of that soothing effect, but we can also give it to ourselves. You can accompany yourself through these moments of stress and burnout. It's important to have relationships, but you are your number one support, right? And what I like to do is right, is to touch, finding and kind of exploring with yourself. Like I like this, like holding my face as I'm just kind of sitting in the moment, and like having like wishing myself things. So may I feel at peace, may I accept myself, may I love myself in this moment, may I just breathe through this moment, may I ride this wave. Whatever those self-soothing statements that you would want somebody else to say to you, giving that to yourself, but adding in a physical touch can have such a beautiful effect. Some people like actually physically like putting their hand over their heart,
I love that.
right?
Yeah.
Right? But actually like saying these words to yourself can start to help shift your thoughts and then bring this different state of feeling and flow. But it all takes time and it's not immediate. So I would just, for your audience, practice what feels kind of good. And it may feel silly, so maybe practicing it by yourself in a room, not like out. But you can also do these in public, which is kind of cool. Like nobody's going to be like, if you kind of like, I like to even just hold my hand or kind of just like rub my arm, just kind of like, it's okay. It's just something really subtle, but really touching and soothing to kind of give that gift to yourself.
Oh, I love that. And I can't get into it today, but there are
Yeah.
some amazing Ayurvedic practices that also engage in that. And
Nice.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Would love to allow this time for you to offer any ways of connecting to you, anything that you have coming up.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. So you can follow me on social media. I'm at Cultivated Healer on Instagram and Facebook. I really, as far as my social media presence, I'm very much on Instagram. So you can follow me there at Cultivated Healer. And my website is in construction. So, you don't have to go there, but there is a link in my Instagram page. I can also give you this link where you can sign up to be on my newsletter. I talk a lot about just helpers and healers and how do we take care of ourselves, but also, if you're thinking about career transition and thinking outside of the box in a way that fits more with your life, I also do that.
Yeah, and I'll make sure to link everything CéShaun has talked about on my webpage.
Cool.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, awesome.
For joining
Thank
me
you.
and offering such beautiful and enlightening experiences.
You.
You can re-listen to this and more of my interviews at greentreeayurveda.com/insight into wellness. If you have a topic that you're interested in hearing about, or if you're someone who is a holistic healer in our community or any community, and you would like to be featured, you could email me at hello@greentreeayurveda.com. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great day.